Hi everyone, my name's Foxy. I'm 13 years old and I have a son. But not everything is as easy as it seems. I didn't want to become a mom at this age. I haven't even graduated from high school yet. But circumstances were such that I simply had no choice. And before you judge me and jump to conclusions, make sure you listen to my story all the way to the end. I'm the youngest daughter in my family. My sister Tessa is 7 years older than me. My mom had her when she was 19. She and my dad didn't plan on becoming parents so young, but that's how it turned out. My mother had been modeling since she was a teenager and was quite successful. She was beautiful, slim, tall. She adorned the covers of fashion magazines, starred in commercials, participated in shows of famous designers. It was at work where she met my father. He was 8 years older than her and worked as a photographer. They met several times at photo shoots, got to know each other, liked each other, started dating, and then my mom got pregnant and they got married. Naturally, Mom had to take a break in her career. She could no longer work as a model being pregnant. During her pregnancy, Mom gained a lot of weight, and there was not a trace of her slim waistline anymore. She hoped that after the birth of the baby, she'd be able to return to her former shape, but this didn't happen. She could forget about her modeling career. Of course, my mother was very worried. She dreamed of conquering Paris and Milan, but in the end, she had to lock herself within four walls with a baby. Sitting at home with little Tessa, my mother finished her marketing courses and went to work when my sister was old enough to go to kindergarten. You may ask, why am I telling you my mother's story? It's just that she decided to live out her unfulfilled dream of a modeling career in my sister, Tessa. In her appearance, my sister was the best of our parents. She's tall and has curly black hair like our father and blue eyes and perfect facial features like our mother. Even when she was a child, everyone admired her beauty, calling her a doll, and showered our parents with compliments. Our mother decided that such an opportunity should not be missed, so she enrolled my sister for an audition at a children's modeling agency. Of course, Tessa was accepted without any questions. Such a beautiful girl had to be filmed in children's clothing or sweets ads. Anyway, at the age of 5, my sister started her career as a model. My mother, without thinking twice, quit her job and became Tessa's manager. She made arrangements for shoots, talked to advertising agencies, and made sure my sister was treated well during photo shoots. She was so obsessed with the idea of making my sister a planet-scale model that she didn't want anyone else to do her career. But then I was born. My mother decided that she wouldn't let go of her dream a second time, so my upbringing fell on my grandmother's shoulders. I lived with her until I was 10 years old. I rarely saw my mother because she and Tessa were mostly on the road or filming somewhere. By the way, my sister started acting not only in commercials, but also in films and TV series. Mom was with her virtually 24/7. She didn't care at all that she had a second daughter who also needed her attention. So, when I was 10, my grandmother died. I had no choice. I had to go back home. I can't say that my father was very happy that my care rested on his shoulders. He continued to work as a photographer, so because of his irregular schedule, I saw him quite rarely too. He would leave money, sign the necessary documents for school, and that was the limit of his fatherly duties. So by the age of 12, I became a very independent child. I left and returned from school on my own, and I learned to cook breakfast and dinner. By the way, I also grew up to be a very pretty girl, but my mother apparently decided that one model in our family was enough. Surprisingly, the whole family was home for Christmas, so we had a real party. That same day, Tessa introduced us to her boyfriend, Troy. It turned out they'd been together for 6 months. He was an actor. They met on set and started dating. She was 19 at the time, Troy was 21. My mother was a little wary of my sister's boyfriend, and after dinner, she had a long talk with my sister behind closed doors. I don't know what she told her, but Tessa came out afterwards very puzzled. Life went on as usual. I began to notice that my sister stayed home more and more when she wasn't working. Usually she'd go out with friends or make TikTok videos, but now, every chance she got, she was sleeping or watching TV surrounding herself with food. Troy came over often, sometimes staying the night. I thought that he and Tessa would probably get married soon. and we'd have one more person in our family. But life had other surprises in store for all of us. One afternoon, Tessa and my mother came back from the shoot earlier than usual. Tessa's eyes were red, and I could tell from Mom's face that she was very, very angry. I decided not to ask what happened. If they wanted to, they would tell me. And they did a couple of days later. Anyway, it turned out that Tessa was pregnant. The father of the baby was Troy, and the doctor said that my sister had to have this baby because otherwise she would face serious health problems in the future. My mother knew from experience that for my sister, having a baby would be the end of her career, which had just started to gain momentum. She was predicted to star in a TV series with a famous director, and then there was that sudden pregnancy. Mom and Tessa thought long and hard about what to do, and decided that Tessa would leave the country during the pregnancy under the guise of starring in a movie. She would give birth there, and then they would hire a nanny to raise the baby. I already felt sorry for the child. I grew up the same way, away from my parents, and didn't know what it was like to be loved by a mom and dad. Tessa went to Canada after a while, and my mom, because she had less work, came home more often, and she even paid attention to me. Or rather, to what an independent girl I had become, and to the fact that I grew up too early for a child. She was looking at me, and I thought she had plans brewing in her head. My greatest fear was that she would force a modeling career on me, too, since Tessa had taken a forced break. It turned out that she did have plans for me, just not the ones I thought she had. A few months later, Tessa returned home, and of course, she was not alone, but with a little baby boy, her son. Luke was teeny-weeny. When I saw him for the first time, I couldn't imagine how I could hold him in my arms. But Tessa solved this problem for me. She just shoved the little bundle with a baby into my hands and rushed over to hug Mom and Dad. Luke stared at me with curious eyes, not crying and scrutinizing everything around him. By the way, Tessa was much luckier than Mother. Her appearance and figure haven't changed, so she could continue her career as an actress and model. And she told Mother that. Mother supported her and promised to look for new advertising contracts in the near future. We still had to decide what to do with the little Luke. No one but our family knew about him, and Tessa wouldn't be able to take him with her on set. My sister reminded us of the babysitter option, but Mom said she had a better idea. And then they both turned their attention to me. Or rather, me and Luke. We liked each other at first sight. So while Mom and Tessa were talking, I played with the baby and even managed to change his diaper and his clothes. It was easy. I'd seen it on TV many times. Mom asked me to join the conversation, and little Luke was taken by my dad. I didn't understand what Mom wanted to tell me, so I certainly wasn't prepared for what I heard next. Well, my mother began by saying that hiring a nanny was rather dangerous. What if in the future Tessa becomes a famous actress and someone knows her secret? The little child she gave birth to in another country. Mom can't babysit, she has a job. Dad has a job too. Tessa and Troy, despite being parents, will both be busy developing careers. So that leaves just me. I'm not a stranger to the baby, I'm his aunt. Besides, I'm a pretty independent person. I already know how to do everything I need to do to take care of the baby. Of course, my mother promised that they would help me, but I listened to her and couldn't believe my own ears. Mom was talking about it as if it were a done deal. But no one asked me if I wanted to raise someone else's child. What about school? What about all the things teenagers usually do? Hanging out at parties, hanging out with friends. I told my mother that I wasn't ready for that, but she said that it wasn't a question or a request. It was just a fact that I had to accept if I didn't want to be sent to a girls' boarding school in another city. I didn't even know what was worse, going away to boarding school or locking myself away at home raising a child. But then I looked at Luke, and I knew I couldn't just abandon him to his fate. I'd grown up without parents, and I knew how hard it was. So I switched to homeschooling and took over the upbringing of my nephew. Of course, it was hard at first, but I quickly learned everything, and the baby was obedient and calm, as if he knew when not to be naughty, and when it was better to sleep in order to give his aunt time to take a test. Now Luke thinks of me as his mom, which is the first time he ever called me that word. My sister continues to have a successful career, and my mom is promoting her. Sometimes I feel bad about the way things have turned out in my life, but I realize I couldn't have done it any other way. What would you do if you were me? Would you refuse to help your sister? Or would you go to a boarding school and forget about your family? Write your answers in the comments to this video. If you liked my story, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so as not to miss news. Bye, everyone!